So, welcome back, Elaine, to the Zoom room. Another Art of Letting Go program live session. So, let's jump into our teaching for today. Some email, quote, some related teachings, which will lead us nicely into today's lesson. There's also a new insert today. So, what is the real world?
Oh, that'd be good.
It's about.
A nice change.
And we'll talk about how can perception of order difficulties be avoided in the Manual for Teachers. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. Yeah, so if you can read that quote from Eckhart Tolle, please.
Yeah. When you lose touch with inner stillness, you lose touch with yourself. When you lose touch with yourself, you lose yourself in the world. Your innermost sense of self, of who you are, is inseparable from stillness. This is the I am. That is deeper than the name and form.
Yeah, it's a great quote from Eckhart Tolle, which I think is the first little entry in a lovely book called Stillness Speaks, which is really just about helping you to connect.
I've read it.
So,
Yeah, I've read it.
I think it's the first passage, the first little entry. You know, it's in the form of just these little sutra type phrases, paragraphs like this, or even sometimes just a sentence. It's just a thought, and then the idea is, okay, we'll pause, reflect on it, think about it, and use that as your practice. So I think this is the one that the whole book started with. When you lose touch with inner stillness, you lose touch with yourself. And when you lose touch with yourself, so that could be your capital self, then you lose yourself in the world. Your innermost sense of self, of who you are, is inseparable from stillness. This is the I am that is deeper than name and form. So this great I am presence is pointing to the connection between inner stillness and who you really are, your true self, beyond name and form. Also calls it the I am, which is one of the oldest recorded names of God, recorded in this passage from the Old Testament 2,600 years ago as the first name of God in the Bible, revealed to Moses from the burning bush. So this is from Exodus. I want to read that. God said to Moses,
God said to Moses, I am what I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you.
Yeah, so Moses, the context of it is Moses was having this mystic experience where he saw this burning bush that never burned. It just, so probably he was in an altered state. It was a vision, and this has all happened internally, and so this presence is speaking to him. It says, Moses, my people suffer. You need to go and help them, basically, because remember he was an Israelite, born an Israelite, but then was adopted by the Pharaoh's daughter. So grew up as one of the ruling class as an Egyptian, until it was revealed that actually he wasn't, and then he got excommunicated. Said, "Well, you're an Israelite, so you can no longer be part of us." And then he went literally into the wilderness, and he'd been, I think, for many years. I think he was, quite advanced in years, 40, 50. He was a shepherd and had a mystic experience where he was called. This voice called him, and then he asked, well, who is this? Who shall I say has sent me? You want me to go and help the people of Israel in bondage in Egypt? Who sent me? And the presence says, I am what I am, or am that I am. That's the name, and I am has sent me to you. So going right back, the original name of God in the Bible is I am that I am, pointing to exactly what Eckhart Tolle is pointing. There's a fundamental essence, presence that is just how else do you say it, but I am. So the passage in Hebrew, the passage uses the verb aya, formerly the word haya, normally translated as I am or I will be. Interesting. So now you start to subtly change it. Instead of I am, it's I will be. Okay, well now you no longer am, you just want to be. So there's a whole article if you're interested in this, but I'll just summarize it for you in a paragraph or two. So according to the article by this theologian who wrote it, that translation is in most situations adequate, but for the meaning of God's name in Exodus 3 and several other places in the Bible, apparently Heya carries the added weight of representing God himself, which was then adapted into the traditional Hebrew name for God, which was Yahweh. So then it goes on. It says that Yahweh is God's personal name, so closely identified with his being that many Orthodox Jews refuse to pronounce it, instead saying Hashem, the name, or Adonai, the Lord. To God, this name's sanctity. And so there already, you see how language does this. You see how the original revelation of Moses and his mystic experience, that God was the very essence of his and everyone's being, expressed as simply as possible in words, as I am what I am, has been denied. And God has become some external entity separate from the fundamentalists who believe in this conception of their own minds, that they must then defend instead of accept as their own true identity. It needs no defense because it simply is. So it starts to get distorted by the language, by theologians who then start, separating out and saying, well, there's this name for God. In the end, it doesn't matter what's in a name, but it starts to become more about the language and the name than about the essence that, say, Moses had in his mystic experience in a revelation, or actually a vision. I must correct that. The original vision of Moses and his mystic experience. So it was a vision, not a revelation, because revelation is beyond time and space, and seeing visions of burning bushes and so on. So it was a vision rather than a revelation. So this kind of thing's been going on, for a long time. As a mystic happens to have an experience like this, it's described, but then it gets distorted because the people who are writing about it haven't had that experience, and so they interpret it according to their limited understanding, and then the truth doesn't get carried through. So God was not seen as just your great I am presence. Mostly in Judaic culture, where God was seen as some kind of super God out there above you in the sky somewhere that was going to reward or punish you for your deeds. Not I am that I am, even though that was recorded in their own scriptures in Exodus. So this kind of denial of truth's been going on a very long time in all the religions of the world. It's in fact why they have become formalized religions with dogma, which is just conceptual thought strongly believed in. That's all a dogma is. Okay, I really believe in this concept, this idea, this ideal, but it's just a belief. Rather than believing in the pointers to the universal experience of God, that Yeshua refers to in this quote from the clarification of terms it's from. So if you can read that, universal theology.
A universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary.
So to have this universal experience of God in as your own beingness, you must still your busy mind. The Buddhists call the monkey or jumping bean mind, and enter into a different state of consciousness or awareness through what's called prayer in the Bible and meditation in the Eastern spiritual traditions. Or whatever you call anything, the experience of connecting with the source or essence of who you really are remains the same. In other words, it's universal. Something that is self-evident from descriptions of the inner experiences of many mystics, saints, gurus, holy men throughout the ages who speak of an eternal, ineffable presence that they can tap into. That's beyond name and form. A lady called Saint Teresa of Avila was a 16th century Spanish noblewoman. Before she heard the call of the Holy Spirit, she was a noblewoman and a social celebrity of her time, but she became a nun and Christian mystic because she found her socialite life very empty. Expressed this sentiment as follows. Prayer is a... You want to read that? Yes, Saint Teresa of Avila.
Prayer is an act of love. Words are not needed. Even if sickness distracts from thoughts, all that is needed is the will to love.
Yeah, so words aren't really needed. It's really just love, love that's called on, even if there's apparently sickness and we get distracted. All that's needed is the will to love. So we choose to continue loving in the face of whatever the world shows us, whatever the ego shows us. So what she's really saying is all you have to do to overcome the sickness of the ego's distracting thought system is to be willing to experience divine or unconditional love in prayer or meditation. To put it even more simply, keep meditating and you will experience the perfect love for which you yearn. It's inevitable. This is the Christ or I am presence to be found in stillness of your pure formless awareness of perfect love. Remember, it's just the translation for God in alternative language. So becoming still in meditation is the way to know God and your true self, one of the most time-honored ways. Because in meditation, you just know it experientially. It's not a dogma, it's not a belief, it's an experience that you invite to come in through practicing the meditation technique or techniques. So you invite an experience in, and there's some technique initially, but ultimately it leads to the universal experience of God, which is beyond technique. So that leads us nicely into the lesson. And first up, there's a new insert that answers the question, what is the real world? So should we dive into that then? Let's have a look at what is the real world. Make sure we get that correct. All right. What is the real world? What is the real world? Insert 8. If you can read that in line in the original and the alternative sentence by sentence, please.
The real world is a symbol like the rest of what perception offers. The real world is a symbol like the rest of what perception offers. Yet it stands for what is opposite to what you made. Yet it stands for what is opposite to what I made. Your world is seen through eyes of fear and brings the witnesses of terror to your mind. I see my world through eyes of fear, and it brings the witnesses of terror to my mind. The real world cannot be perceived except through eyes forgiveness blesses, so they see a world where terror is impossible and witnesses to fear cannot be found. The real world cannot be perceived except through eyes of letting go. Eyes letting go blesses, so they see a world where terror is impossible and witnesses to fear cannot be found.
Yeah. So summary of that. I'll just read that in the alternative from
The
the top.
real world is a symbol like the rest of what perception offers, yet it stands for what is opposite to what I made. I see my world through eyes of fear, and it brings the witnesses of terror to my mind. The real world cannot be perceived except through eyes. Letting go blesses, so they see a world where terror is impossible and witnesses to fear cannot be found.
So what's he saying in this one?
Well, the real world is a symbol rather than what we perceive, and it's the absolute opposite of what we've made. We see the world through eyes of fear and all, witnesses to terror, but really, just letting go blesses. So then we see a world where fear and terror is impossible, and you won't be seeing any witnesses to it either.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of perception of the world he's pointing to. It's like a world where you just don't see these things, although they seem to be there. Suddenly the nightly news is not just going to transform, and there's going to be all pain and suffering and war and sickness and so on will simply disappear. But your perception of it all changes. That's what he's pointing to. The real world is a world where you just don't really acknowledge all of this stuff because you've overlooked it in your own mind. You've corrected your mind, healed your mind of the false belief that all this stuff is real. And that's what he's pointing to. So the real world is, we're still in the world, but it's the world perceived from the perspective of the true self or the Christ. So to go back to our diagram, I'll show you this. Okay, so where are we? Holy Trinity doesn't like that. Okay, and we'll go back. So it's the world perceived from the true self or the Christ with true perception. So that's letting go of all the dreams, all the attachments, and so you still see all this stuff that goes on, but your perception is now coming from the Christ or the true self that knows that actually none of this is real and that we are all still one. There's really only still one awareness that transcends and underlies everything. And so you live, living. And what he's talking about as the real world is you are operating the system, the true self and the Holy Spirit, reinterpreting all the experiences of this world. And you're doing that all the time when you're in the real world, without exception. So you always see correctly, you always perceive correctly, you always have Christ's vision. And that's what we're training our minds to do. Once we're in that state and we've totally identified with our true self or Christ, we're ready for God to take the final step, and we simply merge back in to this fundamental awareness. Okay, so that is clear from the diagram. Understand what the real world is. I'll go into more of it, but it's the world perceived anew, corrected perception from the perspective of Christ or the true self. Okay, number 2.
Yeah. The real world holds counterpart to each unhappy thought reflected in your world, a sure correction for the sights of fear and sounds of battle which your world contains. The real world holds counterpart for each unhappy thought reflected in my world, a sure correction for the sights of fear and sounds of battle which my world contains. The real world shows a world seen differently, through quiet eyes and with a mind at peace. The real world shows a world perceived differently, through quiet eyes and with a mind at peace. Nothing but rest is there. Nothing but rest is there. There are no cries of pain and sorrow heard, for nothing there remains outside forgiveness. There is no cries of pain and sorrow, for nothing there remains beyond letting go. And the sights are gentle, and the sights are gentle. Only happy sights and sounds can reach the mind that has forgiven itself. Only happy sights and sounds can reach the mind that has released itself.
So what's he saying in this one? Just read it from the top in the alternative.
The real world holds a counterpart for each unhappy thought reflected in my world, a sure correction for the sights of fear and sounds of battle which my world contains. The real world shows a world perceived differently, through quiet eyes and with a mind at peace. There is nothing but rest there. There are no cries of pain and sorrow heard, for nothing there remains behind letting go. And the sights beyond letting go. And the sights are gentle. Only happy sights and sounds can reach the mind that has released itself.
Okay, so what's he saying in this one?
Well, the real world has an opposite, a counterpart for all these miserable thoughts that we're having, and correction of all the fear and the battle that's going on. The real world is different. Through its eyes, there is nothing but rest there. There's no misery, pain, suffering, nothing. Just all you have to do is go beyond letting go. And there, the sights are very kind and gentle. So once you've released all of this, then only a happy outcome.
Yeah, so it's the preparation for heaven. You're not going to go straight from hell into heaven without a change in perception. So he must change our perception, so the world becomes as heavenly as it possibly can do in our perception, because we perceive the underlying, the deeper awareness, love that underlies everything. And so the sights become gentle, sounds become happy, because our mind is healed, or healing at least, awakening to its true nature. This calls to mind, that there was a fourth characteristic of God's teachers, which was gentleness. It's a very gentle, kind, loving perception of everyone and everything, even when that wouldn't seem to be justified. I think that's really the key point. It's easy to be loving and gentle and kind when people are being nice to you, but when they're not, things start going awry, and people are not nice, and whatever dramas, traumas, pain, sickness, suffering happens to you or to people love, then that's when it really counts. Now, can you then still perceive that only the sights and sounds are gentle when all of that's happening?
Yeah.
And that's a test.
Yeah.
Because people might say, well, it's all very well, things are going well and fine, but we know things don't go well. So what happens when
50-50?
What happens when there's a rough patch and things are difficult? Well, if your perception is truly healed, then you would still see with the same underlying awareness and the gentleness that brings. Only happy sights and sounds can reach the mind that has healed itself, that's released itself. So we interpret reality in the external world according to a filter. Reality is not as it is. Reality is as we perceive it to be. And that perception is based on our thought system. It's probably demonstrated nicely here. Let's bring that diagram up. So you have these layers of your mind, starting with the very core belief in desire to be a separate self, or the prayer to be oneself. That's what it comes down to. The desire or prayer, that then brings about a certain belief system. So if you desire to be a separate self, you will believe that you are separate. You will believe that you are unworthy on some level of love, even if you are apparently overtly successful, have achieved a lot. The unworthiness will always be there, because it's a necessary consequence of the desire to separate from your source. As soon as you desire to do that, then you doubt your own identity, and the identity that you miscreate in its place must then be unworthy. So belief, thought, and then emotion all kind of crystallize, calcify over the core desire, and then those influence perception. So now you get sensory data coming in, and that is in turn influenced by all of this. Your beliefs, desires, thoughts, emotions get projected out into the dream world to show you exactly what it is that you believe. So that's how it works. And the real world is just a transformed perception of any of these sensory data that come in. So if you change your perception, you also change emotion, thought, belief, and that fundamental desire to be a separate self. You let that go and you replace it with the one self, or the Christ, and then the projections start changing. So projection leads to perception, and this is how miracles work. You project because you believe differently, you project differently, and you perceive it differently. Yes, is that clear?
Yes.
How it works. And when you've made a decision, the key point is when you decide at the core level, no, I don't want to be a separate self anymore. I want to be one self. My true desire or prayer is to be the true self, the Christ, which is one with everyone else. That fundamental decision changes the beliefs, the thoughts, the emotions, and all of your perceptions, because you can't perceive the world in the same way with that as your underlying premise. If you still perceive the desire to be separate as valuable, then you will perceive opposite to that, and you will create beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions accordingly. So by correcting it all, we start to perceive a different kind of world, even if the sensory data initially don't change very much. What can happen in time is the projections change, the desire or the prayer changes what's being projected out. So you change your mind, and then the projections change, and then you perceive it differently. But to start with, that probably won't happen. So what you have to do is work on perception, change your perception. All right. So the world. Any questions or comments on number 2?
No, that's good, thanks.
Okay. So on to number 3 then.
What need has such a mind for thoughts of death, attack, and murder? What need has such a mind for thoughts of death, attack, and murder? What can it perceive surrounding it but safety, love, and joy? What can it perceive surrounding it except safety, love, and joy? What is there it would choose to be condemned, and what is there that would judge against? What is there it could choose to be condemned, and what is there that it could judge against? The world I see.
Pause there. What? And what could it choose to be condemned, and what is there, and he's changed the tense as well. The previous one is can. What can it choose to be condemned, and what can it judge against? All right, carry on.
And what is there it would choose to be condemned? Oh yeah, I've already read that. The world it sees arises from a mind at peace within itself. The world it perceives arises from a mind at peace within itself. No danger lurks in anything it sees, for it is kind, and only kindness does it look upon. No danger lurks in anything it perceives, for it is kind, and only kindness does it look upon.
Okay, so read that from the top in the alternative.
Yeah. What need has such a mind for thoughts of death, attack, and murder? What can it perceive surrounding it except safety, love, and joy? What can it choose to be condemned, and what can it judge against? The world it perceives arises from a mind at peace within itself. No danger lurks in anything it perceives, for it is kind, and it only perceives kindness.
Yeah, so very much, the gentleness. Remember, that was number 4 of the characteristics of God's teachers. He's talking about this gentleness very much in this little insert. But our perception of the world becomes much gentler and kinder. We don't see danger lurking in everything because our mind is healed, our mind is quiet, calm. And so that, the apparent danger that the ego likes to focus on simply disappears because you don't focus on it. Focus on the inner feeling of love and peace and joy, and that's what directs your perception and your reality. So why do we need thoughts of death, attack, and murder? And quite graphic, but we've all had them. Many people continue to have them all day, every day. So it's making us realize, well, what need do I have over these things? They're not useful. I'd rather be peaceful. So then I must choose to let these things go. Anything that doesn't make me peaceful, I let go of and realize that it's simply unreal. That's a simple formula for forgiveness. Okay. So any other thoughts on number 3?
That's good, thank you.
All right, so number 4.
The real world is the symbol that the dream of sin and guilt is over, and God's Son no longer sleeps. The real world is the symbol that the dream of sin and guilt is over, and perfect love's extension no longer sleeps. His waking eyes perceive the sure reflection of his Father's love, the certain promise that he is redeemed. Its waking eyes perceive the sure reflection of its source's love and the certain promise that it is redeemed. The real world signifies the end of time, for its perception makes time purposeless. The real world signifies the end of time, for its perception makes time purposeless.
Okay, and then read it from the top in the alternative.
The real world is the symbol that the dream of sin and guilt is over, and perfect love's extension no longer sleeps. Its waking eyes perceive the sure reflection of its source's love and the certain promise that it is redeemed. The real world signifies the end of time, or its perception makes time purposeless.
Okay, so what's he saying in that one? Summary?
Well, the real world is just a dream of sin and guilt, and perfect love's extension no longer sleeps. And it's a true reflection of its source's love and the promises that it is redeemed. So the world is now, the real world signifies the end of time, or its perception makes time purposeless. So time is ended.
Let's have a look at the timeline here. It might be useful. Timeline of consciousness. So when we live in the real world, what we're continuously doing is raising ourselves up above this battleground of the world. So we transcend the events that seem to happen on the timeline, the ego's reactions to those events, symbolized by the arrows, the red arrows, and we go back into our true awareness. And so whenever we do that, what are we doing? We're saying this signifies the end of time. Whenever we leave the timeline of linear time, we go back to this eternal state of consciousness, state of mind, state of awareness, shall we say. It's eternal state of awareness. What are you saying? Well, I'm going outside of time. I'm leaving time. I'm no longer an entity caught up on the timeline from birth to death. In this moment, I'm just pure formless awareness of perfect love. And at the end of it, end of our life, well, we leave the timeline entirely. And if we've done our job, we're so identified with this awareness that we just merge into it. Become one with it. So every time you forgive or let go, you're ending time. See, that's inherent in the process of letting go. Because really what you're saying is, in this moment, there's no past, there's no future. I'm purely present, and I'm in my true awareness, in my source. Okay, so that's how it brings about the end of time. To reflection, certain promise that it is redeemed, maybe it is freed. Real world signifies the end of time, for its perception makes time purposeless. And so that is in practice, that's a process. We live in the real world when we practice forgiveness or letting go. And then moment by moment, this real world unfolds for us and signifies the end of time. All right. Any other thoughts on that?
No, that's good.
Okay, so number 5 in the original and alternative, kindly.
The Holy Spirit has no need for time when it has served his purpose. The remembrance of perfect love has no need of time when it has served its purpose. Now he waits but that one instant more for God to take his final step, and time has disappeared to take perception with it as it goes, and leaving but the truth to be itself. Now it waits just one moment more for pure formless awareness of perfect love to take its final step, and then come, what does that say? And then, sorry, time will disappear, taking perception with it as it does, and leaving only the truth to be itself. That instant is our goal, for it contains the memory of God. That instant is my goal, for it contains the memory of perfect love. And as we look upon a world forgiven, it is he who calls to us and comes to take us home, reminding us of our identity, which our forgiveness has restored to us. And as I perceive a world released, it is this presence that calls to me and comes to take me home, reminding me of my identity, which my letting go has restored to me.
So read that from the top in the alternative.
The remembrance of perfect love has no need of time when it has served its purpose. Now it waits just one moment more for pure formless awareness of perfect love to take its final step, and then time will disappear, taking perception with it as it does, and leaving only the truth to be itself. That instant is my goal, for it contains the memory of perfect love. And as I perceive a world released, it is this presence that calls to me and comes to take me home, reminding me of my identity, which my letting go has restored to me.
Yeah. So what's he saying in that one?
Um, well, the remembrance of perfect love is just no need for time. It served its purpose. So now it just waits for this one moment, the pure formless awareness of perfect love, to take its final step, and then time will disappear, and then the truth will be there. So then that instant is our goal, and there the memory of perfect love will be. So once I've released the world, this presence will call to me and take us all back home. And then that will remind us of our identity when we are letting go.
Yeah. So any way of finding yourself, your true identity, finding the real world, is letting go. Letting go reveals the real world to you as an intermediate step in the awakening. We've talked about the Holy Trinity and this idea. So if we completely consumed with our ego identity and all of its interpretations of time and space, we're miles away from God. So this is saying, well, you need to start letting go, and letting go creates much more of an awareness of your true self that is one with everyone else. So it's the self that says you're one self, not many. Raises us up into the true self, or the Christ, or the Son of God, extension, Buddha nature, Atman. There's all the different words for it, which then has these true perceptions, or Christ's vision. Those are the miracles, or the corrections, or forgiveness, or letting go, or surrender that raises you above the battleground. So now you're perceiving the real world rather than the false one from this perspective. And this world is no longer frightening, or whatever label you put on it before. Frightening, upsetting, angry, attacking, fearful, condemning. It's all egoic labels. That's all been done away with. You enter into the true self and its true perception so fully that true self, or Christ, becomes the precursor. From there, it's not that difficult. Not that difficult to then go back home into this top level awareness. You're already kind of at the gates of heaven. Once you fully established as the true self, or the Christ, this awareness is there always in your mind, even if it's not in the foreground, it's in the background. So to merge back into that awareness alone is not such a big deal. And he says God takes the final step. So the entire course is really about teaching you how to go from being here, completely identified with the character and the dream and all the people, things, places, events, circumstances, situations, trauma, successes, failures, and all other experiences in time and space, to raise you up into a higher awareness that is able to perceive these things correctly, reinterpret them from the perspective now of the one true self, or the Christ. Okay, so does that make sense? I think
Yes, it does.
it's a brilliant system, really, because he's giving us a bridge. He's giving us a halfway house. He's giving us a kind of interim solution between the worlds to say, well, yes, you're going to go there ultimately, but you're not just going to get there straight away. So in the interim, this is what you work towards, to being rooted in your true self and perceiving with Christ's vision or true perceptions, no matter what seems to happen. All right. So the real world's just the world correctly perceived, which is the precursor to heaven. You don't go straight from hell into heaven. You go via the real world, which is like the intermediate stage, the mezzanine level, where you become more and more established in your true self. You perceive the world correctly, and why would you come back here once you know who you are? Okay, so happy to move on to the lesson.
Yes.
Nice warm up for the lesson. So let's get into that. Okay, so this is lesson 291. Now, I think we actually did this yesterday because I was looking at the text, and that's kind of strangely familiar. I was like, yeah, actually, because we did 291 yesterday. But anyway, we'll do it again.
Right.
And we can look at yesterday's one if you want to. Just leave it for next year. So yeah, if you can read that original, and
This is a day of stillness and of peace. This is a day of stillness and peace.
so just calling it in, saying it's about the stillness, accessing the stillness and the peace that are always there, but you have to claim them, which is what this lesson is saying. It's an affirmation of that stillness and peace. Beautiful picture, tranquil lake, just no movement, glassy still, just calm, quiet, still mind. We all yearn for that on some level, because that's home. If there's only stillness and peace, then you're home. You're back in source. There's no disturbance at all in God. All right, so let's read paragraph 1 in the original and the alternative.
Christ's vision looks through me today. My true self's vision looks through me today. His sight shows me all things forgiven and at peace, and offers the same vision to the world. Its perception shows me everything released at peace, and offers the same vision to the world. And I accept this vision in its name, both to myself and for the world as well. And I accept this vision in its identity, both for myself and the world as well. What loveliness we look upon today. What loveliness I see today. What holiness we see surrounding us. What pure formless awareness I perceive for surrounding me. And it is given us to recognize it is the holiness in which we share. It is the holiness of God Himself. And I recognize it is an awareness of which I share. It is the pure formless awareness of perfect love itself.
I read that from the top in the alternative.
My true self's vision looks through me today. Its perception shows me everything released and at peace, and offers the same vision to the world. And I accept this vision in its identity, both for myself and the world as well. What loveliness I see today. What pure formless awareness I perceive surrounding me. and I recognize it as is and an awareness in which I share. It is the pure formless awareness of perfect love itself.
Yeah. Okay. So what's he saying in that one?
The true self is looking through us today, if we want it. Its perception shows everything released, and there is peace for me and the world. And if I accept this vision for me and my world, loveliness and is going to be there for us. So, so if I recognize it as awareness in which myself and everybody else shares in this pure formless awareness of perfect love. So it's our true vision rather than the other.
Yeah, so we start perceiving this awareness everywhere. And enlightened beings, they see it everywhere. It's in them. It's in everywhere. It's everywhere, and they perceive it everywhere because it's in their mind. God goes with me wherever I go, because God is in my mind. That's lesson 30, I think, of the workbook. So it's everywhere because it's in my mind, and I can never be apart from that fundamental awareness. So I live in that awareness. I breathe in that awareness. I work. I play. I dance. I do everything in this awareness, and it's everywhere, surrounding me. There's nowhere this awareness is not. This is the enlightened being's perspective on the world. So that's he's pointing. Remember, these lessons are designed to match the insert, so it's pointing us to the real world. It is, happy and joyful, peaceful and loving always. Okay, so number 2, that's just a prayer. I'll read that line by line.
This day my mind is quiet to receive the thoughts you offer me. Today my mind is quiet to receive the thoughts you offer me, and I accept what comes from you instead of from myself. And I accept what comes from you instead of from myself alone. I do not know the way to you. I do not know the way to you, but you are wholly certain. But you are wholly certain. Father, guide your son along the quiet path that leads to you. My source, your extension, along the quiet path that leads to you. Let my forgiveness be complete, and let the memory of you return to me. Help me let go completely and allow the memory of you to return to me.
Okay, and just read that in the alternative from the top.
Today my mind is quiet to receive the thoughts you offer me, and I accept what comes from you instead of from myself alone. I do not know the way to you, but you are wholly certain. My source, guide, your extension along the quiet path that leads to you. Help me let go completely and allow the memory of you to return to me.
All right, so what's he saying in this one?
So through a still and quiet mind, we can receive the thoughts from our source, but we need to accept them. Because we
I do have an empty vessel, isn't it? Your mind is so full of thoughts. There's no room for anything else. So you have to empty the cup. Or you can pour new water into it. And this water symbolizing, the word, the message of truth and perfect love, which is why, meditation universally, meditation, prayer, these kinds of practices have been used for millennia by spiritual seekers to quiet the mind. Okay, well, let me stop thinking so much about myself and the world and all the dramas going on in the world. And when I quiet my mind, then I open my mind to receive different kinds of thoughts that are truly guided, that are helpful, that really only see the real world, the world of kindness and loving and kindness, loving, awareness, gentleness. A lovely image, really. My source, guide your extension on the quiet path that leads to you. Lovely thoughts of just walking quietly along, this path with the guide in front of you. You could visualize that as Yeshua if you want to see someone, and allow the memory of you to return to me. So maybe we'll do that actually. We'll change our guide a meditation where we do a little visualization of that. Okay, so anything else on that one? Or should we go into the meditation on it then?
Yeah.
Okay. So just making yourself comfortable. And your favorite meditation posture, sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight. Cup your hands in your lap, you close your eyes, and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. And breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Filling the stomach up like a balloon, clenching the sphincter muscle to lock the energy in. Drawing the energy up your spine to your heart center. Put one hand on your heart if that helps you. Breathe in. Notice any thoughts, emotions, related body sensations going on for you, particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. Anything that's disturbing your peace. Might be a pretty minor disturbance, a little bit of irritation or frustration, but as Yeshua says, minor irritation is just a cover for intense rage. So actually, it's all the same. It's anger, it's fear, it's attack, it's hatred, it's death, it's all the thought system of the ego. So breathe into all of that. You're breathing in this stillness and this peace. Imagine breathing in the very essence of stillness, peace it brings into every pore. Cell, every muscle. Remind yourself, this is a day of stillness and peace. I cannot be fearful, I cannot be angry, irritated, jealous, or any other thoughts and emotion that crosses your mind. You exhale and you blow it out. The breeze of your breath into the nothingness that it really is. It's going, gone. And just give yourself a few moments of the stillness and peace. There's nothing you need to do. Nowhere else to go. Just breathe, relax, and be still. Breathe, relax, and be still. Feel the stillness and the peace arising in your heart and your mind. And breathing in now. As you breathe in, listen to me speak these words from this lesson. And then when I pause, you exhale out through your nose, and you're gonna speak them as affirmations of the truth. You can do this with one hand on your heart, so really connect with your heart center, make them more powerful, really feel into these words. Then you're breathing in. So my true self's vision looks through me today. It's not really you, it's your true self. It's looking through you. It's a vision inspired by your true self. Breathing in again. Deep breath in, stomach rises, chest rises, clench the sphincter muscle. Put one hand on your heart. Really feel into these words as you listen. So there's perception. Shows me everything released and at peace. And offers the same vision to the world. And exhale, and as you repeat that, have a sense of extending. Breathing in again. And I accept this vision. I accept the vision and its identity, both for myself and the world as well. Breathe in and accept this identity of your true self, Christ, which is one self, one with every person, every living creature. You share the same self and the same awareness. Breathe that into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body. Feel it in your heart center. Breathe it into your heart. You can put one hand on your heart. Really embrace this. Connect with it deeply. I accept this vision, its identity, both for myself and the world as well. Say that out loud as you exhale. Breathe in. Breathing in again. Say, what loveliness I see today. What pure formless awareness I perceive surrounding me. Breathe that pure formless awareness in. It's everywhere. And that's saying God goes with you wherever you go because it's in your mind. So this awareness is in your mind. And it's actually underlies the whole dream. Awareness hasn't changed one bit. what pure formless awareness I perceive surrounding me, everywhere. Speak those words. What pure formless awareness I perceive surrounding me. You can open your eyes briefly as you look around. It's still there, whether your eyes are open or closed, and close your eyes again and connect with the inner feeling. So whether your eyes are open them again, or closed, notice it's the same awareness, the same loving awareness behind all of it. Breathing in again. So I recognize it as an awareness in which I share. It is the pure formless awareness of perfect love itself. Just rest in that awareness for a few moments. So this day, breathe in again. Today, my mind is quiet to receive the thoughts you offer me, calling on your source, your higher self, to offer you these thoughts that are not going to trench you in the dream, that are so feel these thoughts, deep stillness and peace. Any related thoughts of tranquility, happiness, peace, love, joy come in. Embrace them, welcome them in. And then let go of any others. And breathe in again. And I accept what comes from you instead of from myself alone. Eyes on, just doing a meditation. So you want to do the tail end of the med, and then we'll go into the manual for teachers. So close your eyes, breathing in. So I accept what comes from you instead of from myself alone. Speak out loud as you exhale. Breathing in again. I do not know the way to you. You don't know the way to you as you exhale. Repeat that. But you are wholly certain. Breathe in and feel that certainty deep down. Presence in you that's wholly certain. Breathe in again. The source, guide your extension along the quiet path that leads to you. Breathe in again. Help me let go completely. Allow the memory of you to return to me. Help me let go completely. Allow the memory of you to return to me. And so just imagine now you're walking down a quiet path. Maybe in a forest. Very quiet. Perhaps it's snowed, so it's that deathly hush that snow creates. Not a whisper. You walk down that path, quietly, calmly towards a light in the distance. Forest is quite dense. Imagine you're walking and you come into a little opening and the man is sitting there on a rock, and you go up to him, and as you get closer, you see that it looks like Jesus, Yeshua. And he turns to you and he smiles, a great big broad smile. Says, welcome. Welcome, my friend, to the quiet path to God. So I will, says, I'll lead you. I'll guide you the rest of the way. Your doubts, your fears, your worries, the noise. It's over now. Just follow me and we'll walk this quiet path in peace back to our source, back to the Father, source of all life and love. And then he looks at you with a twinkle in his eyes and he says, are you up for it? Will you follow me? And you feel in your heart the call to do that. And you answer, yes, of course. Yes, of course. Thank you for waiting for me. I'm a bit slow in getting here, but I'm here now. He says, yes, you are. I'm here now. That's all that matters. Your whole life, all your experiences have brought you here to this moment, to our meeting and to this quiet path of awakening. And he says, come, shall we go? And he walks through you, ahead of you in the snow, very lightly. It's almost as though not sinking in at all. It's just no sound. His footsteps make no sound. It's this ethereal figure. When you walk, follow him, wind through the wood, and the light that's getting closer and closer. And finally you come out from this quiet path to this brilliant sunshine, blue sky. It's pure white. He says, let us rest a bit. And you find an old tree stump, and he sits next to you on a rock and says, let's just quietly meditate together for a while. It's quiet in your mind. He said, focus on your breath. Breathing in and out through your nose. And just observe the breath. Thoughts come in, you just observe those too. They come in, they blow around a bit like cloud patterns, and then they leave. So you can just help them on your way with the breath. Just breathe them out and So just sinking inwards, observe the breath, let the breath take you deeper and deeper into the stillness and the peace that this lesson points to, which is the kingdom of heaven, which says, in the kingdom there is only stillness and peace. And this kingdom is within you, it's not anywhere outside. So you can find it anytime you want. Just quiet your mind, sit quietly and allow happiness to alight upon you. The butterfly, you don't have to go seeking it, it will just come. So do that now, just sinking inwards to the stillness and the peace that are always there. Allowing your breath to carry you deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper with each passing breath into this deep, quiet, calm, still place of awareness. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, be still, and enter into this still, peaceful, calm awareness, pure formless awareness. We call it perfect love for a few minutes of deep, peaceful silence. So just gently coming back into an awareness of the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. And 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. And you pause at the top of the inhale. Smile. Scan your mind. So notice any thoughts, emotions, related body sensations going on. Particularly anything that feels maybe sort of limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. And remind yourself this is a day of stillness and peace. So I'm quiet, I'm peaceful. And I just release everything else. Exhale, blow it out. Imagine that. And dis-ease is leaving you from your body, your mind, energy system. Blowing it away with the breeze of your breath like a dark cloud. You exhale, notice how the air flows out, chest and the stomach suck back in. Energy slides back down into the lower stomach and the groin. On a count of 2, notice the weight of your body. Pressing down into the chair, feet touching the ground, notice what you're feeling, touching your hands. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth as you breathe in, a smell in your nose. Notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment, noticing all these things from this very still, calm, peaceful state of awareness, a state of mind without judgment, state of mind in which the mind is calm, quiet, peaceful, in a witnessing state. You can observe sense perceptions without getting mentally, emotionally involved in them. Observe a perspective which is calmer, quieter, more peaceful than the person who's always reacting. Active in the world and reacting to people, places, circumstances, and events. This is the observer that simply allows it all to happen. Yeshua said, be passers-by. The Gospel of Thomas, which means just observe it all passing by. It comes and it goes, and you realize that it's all very temporary. Can't attach to any of it in form. So just anchor the state of deep peace and stillness in. Set the intention to stay here for the rest of the session in the evening. So it is said, so it is done. Now on the count of 3, open your eyes. Take a minute to look around, just observing everything in this very calm, still, quiet way. Notice that without judgment, your underlying calmness and quietness is really not affected at all. It's unaffected by whatever you perceive, so that your eyes just randomly move from one object to another, one person to another. There's other people in the room. Close your eyes if you need to. Open your eyes. It doesn't really matter. Notice that the feeling is the same. It's still peaceful, calm feeling is the same, irrespective of whether your eyes are open or closed or what you happen to be looking at. So you teach your mind in this way that your mind is independent of what you perceive. Your peace is independent of what you perceive. Peace is always there, irrespective of what seems to be happening on the level of form. So it is. Anchor the state in, carry this with you for the rest of the session into our next part of it, where we're going to discuss read and discuss the Manual for Teachers, which considers the question, can order of difficulty in perception, hang on, let me just bring it up. How can perception of order of difficulties be avoided? Okay, so shall we dive into that? Just get recording going. All right, let's just say hello to John quickly. Hi, John. Welcome back.
Hi, John. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, John.
Yeah, welcome. So good timing. Well, you got a bit of the med, and so we're going to do the section 8 on the Manual for Teachers. So let's get that going. All right, so share my screen again. So this one answers the question, how can perception of order of difficulties be avoided? So should we go straight into it? John, if you can read that paragraph 1 in the original and the alternative sentence by sentence, please.
The belief in order of difficulties is the basis for the world's perception. The belief in order of difficulties is the basis for my perception of the world. It rests on differences, on uneven background and shifting foreground, on unequal heights and diverse sizes, on varying degrees of darkness and light, and thousands of contrasts in which each thing seen competes with every other in order to be recognized. It rests on differences, on uneven background and shifting foreground, on unequal heights and diverse sizes, on varying degrees of darkness and light, and thousands of contrasts in which each thing seen competes with every other in order to be recognized. A larger object overshadows a smaller one. A larger object overshadows a small. A brighter thing draws the attention from another with less intensity of appeal. A brighter thing draws the attention from another with less intensity of appeal. And a more threatening idea, or one conceived of as more desirable by the world's standards, completely upsets the mental balance. And a more threatening idea, or one I conceived of as more desirable, or one I conceive of as more desirable by the world's standards, completely upsets my mental balance. What the body's eyes behold is only conflict. What my body's eyes behold is only conflict. Look not to them for peace and understanding. I look not to them for peace and understanding.
I will not look to them for peace and understanding. So if you can read that from the top in the alternative, please.
The error in order of difficulties is the basis for my current perception of the world. It rests on differences, on uneven background and shifting foreground, on unequal heights and diverse sizes, on varying degrees of darkness and light, and thousands of contrasts in which each thing seen competes with every other in order to be recognized. A large object overshadows a smaller one. Brighter thing draws the attention from another with less intensity of appeal. And a more threatening idea, or one I conceive of as more desirable by the world's standards, completely upsets my mental balance. What my body's eyes see is only conflict. I will not look to them for peace and understanding.
Okay, so yeah, what's he saying here?
So I'm saying here that our belief in certain things being more difficult to achieve than others is due to our attaching more importance, more significance to, or perceiving more difficulty in some things than others. And we are constantly pulled by more seemingly desirous goals. Hence,
Yeah.
hence we go into constant conflict and destroy our own peace.
Yeah, he's talking about the ego's world. So a world of variation. Everything's different. It's like varying degrees of darkness and light, and all these things that go on. A larger object overshadows a smaller one. And you only have to go out now into, it's Christmas shopping and that sort of time. You go out into a shop on a high street and you see exactly what he's saying. All these different objects you can buy, and people, store owners want you to buy them. So it's like, oh, this one is larger, brighter, better, all designed to get your attention. And directs it away from the peace that lies within you into the world. A more threatening idea, or one I conceive as more desirable by the world's standards, completely upsets my mental balance. So it could just be ideas, not what you perceive. It's just an idea. You perceive a threat. If you take it seriously, it destroys your mental balance, as does desire. If you really want something, you notice how that disturbs your peace. So he's saying, don't look to the world for peace and understanding, because you won't find it there. You won't find it in perception and through the body's eyes. Find it when you perceive correctly all of these changes, the shifting and the changing of the perceptual world. When you perceive that is unreal, that is part of the illusion. The veil of illusion has been pulled over, the wool pulled over your eyes to prevent you from seeing the truth. Then you start making some progress. So don't look to the world for peace and understanding. And it's a good reminder in this coming festive season, because it's very easy to get lost in all that and forget that actually what Yeshua came to teach was just this deep peace, understanding of this peace. That's what he was born into the world to teach. And everything else that's been added, Christmas has become a pagan festival. It was based on originally a pagan festival. They then just kind of grafted it on to that pagan festival, which was all about feasting and worldly stuff. The celebration that half of winter was over. You're now heading towards spring. There's a turning point in the winter, and so it was a winter kind of feasting festival. And then that sort of got grafted on to Christianity, and that's why Christmas has got all these different influences. Actually, what Yeshua really stood for was just this deep peace and stillness, peace of God that surpasses all understanding. So if you can stay in that peace while all of this stuff's going on in the festive season, then you're doing well. Okay. Any thoughts or comments on paragraph 1?
That makes sense.
Yeah, Elaine, happy?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Can you read number 2 in the original and the alternative kindly?
Illusions are always illusions of differences. Illusions are always illusions of differences. How could it be otherwise? How could it be otherwise? By definition, an illusion is an attempt to make something real that is regarded as of major importance, but it is recognized as being untrue. By definition, an illusion is an attempt to make something real that is regarded as of a major importance, but is recognized as being untrue. The mind, therefore, seeks to make it true out of its intensity of desire to have it for itself. My mind, therefore, seeks to make it true. Make it true. Oh, keeps moving. Second, where am I? Make it true out of its intensity of desire to have it for itself. Illusions or travesties of creation, attempts to bring truth to lies. Illusions are travesties of being, attempts to bring truth to lies. Finding truth unacceptable, the mind revolts against truth and gives itself an illusion of victory. Finding truth unacceptable, my mind revolts against truth and gives itself an illusion of victory. Finding health a burden, it retreats into feverish dreams. Finding health a burden, it retreats into feverish dreams. And in these dreams, the mind is separate, different from other minds, with different interests of its own, and able to gratify its needs at the expense of others. And in these dreams, my mind is separate, different from other minds, with different interests of its own, and able to gratify its needs at the expense of others.
So read that from the top in the
Illusions are always illusions of differences. How can it be otherwise? By definition, an illusion is an attempt to make something real that is regarded as of major importance, but I also recognize on a deeper level as being untrue. My mind therefore seems to make it true out of its intensity of desire to have for itself. Illusions are travesties of being and attempts to bring truth to lies. Finding truth unacceptable, my mind revolts against truth and gives itself an illusion of victory. Finding health a burden, it retreats into feverish dreams. And in these dreams, my mind is separate, different from other minds, with different interests of its own, and able to gratify its needs at the expense of others.
Okay, so what's he saying in this one in summary?
Well, an illusion is an attempt to make something real with regards to importance. But we must recognize on a deeper level, well, we know really on a deeper level, that all of this is untrue. So it tries to make this real by intensifying all its desires to have for itself. But illusions are travesties of being and attempts to bring truth to lies. And it finds the truth unacceptable. So, so it's, in the dream, the mind's separate, different from other minds, and is only interested in its own gratification at the expense of others. So
a travesty is a mockery.
Yeah.
Travesty, or what do you think? Should we change that to mockery?
Yeah.
Travesty. Does that make it clearer? Illusions are mockeries of being. So it's like a fake being. We try and make it real in our attempt to bring truth to lies, because we don't accept the truth. My mind revolts against truth, gives itself an illusion of victory. The thing about when you've really wanted something, it's quite a good good thing to think back to. And just if you really desire something to be true, what that does to the mind.
Makes you miserable.
Yeah, and
Obsessive.
just how distorted your perception can become, because you're like, well, it doesn't really matter. I want this to be true, so I can't see objectively anymore. I'm completely, my mind is distorted.
It never meets your expectation either.
Yeah, and inevitably, this is you're being pulled in, you've been suckered in to a dream. I remember once I was scammed. It wasn't a lot of money, but I'm very glad I went through it. It was almost like, on some level, I was like, okay, I have to go through this experience, because having gone through it, I saw exactly how the ego mind works, and how your desire for this to be true is what cons you ultimately. The guys are really just playing to your own desire. They can only con you if you allow yourself to be conned. And so it was my desire that this was true. At the time, I was struggling for money. They offered me, it's like, wow, this could be brilliant, amazing. So I have this desire for it to be true. And then even though there were signs, it was like, hang on, be careful here. My desire overrode it, because I wanted so much for it to be true. And that's how it was done, because it was my own desire that deceived me. But it was a very good lesson. I'm very glad I went through that experience, because like, okay, I got a much deeper understanding of how these, in this instance, it was a con, but also how the mind and its desires work, and how they really do, lead us down the garden path into a world of make believe. It's fantasy, it's fiction. It has no bearing on reality, and we can't see objectively. And so we lose our power of discernment and discrimination to make intelligent decisions, because the desire overrides everything else. And this is what he's talking about. And we want to gratify our needs at the expense of others. So if someone's really consumed by their own desire for whatever, that's what we call addiction. They will do whatever to meet their desire. If ever you've had experience of addicts, you'll know it's like whatever. They will do whatever to get their fix, because their desire becomes all consuming and everything else is secondary, and they will do anything to anyone to meet that apparent need, able to gratify its needs at the expense of others. So those are extreme examples, but you see just how distorted the mind's perceptions can become in the hands of the ego, and then the results are not pretty. You see people who are in extreme desire addicts, and what it does to their lives. It's very destructive, and to the lives of everyone around them as well. Very destructive. So we have to be vigilant of this. Even a minor oh well, it's just a little, I just fancy that or whatever. You got to be vigilant, because it's a slippery slope. If you allow one desire to come in, then he goes, okay, well, we've got a hold there, so let's make that desire bigger, or bring in other desires, because the mind's now allowing it. As the Buddha noted, desire is the source of all suffering. So desire is the way. The ego finds its way into your mind and sets up a pattern of desiring, never really being fulfilled, and then grievances and desire go hand in hand. If I desire something and a grievance, then I have a grievance that it's not achieved and that I don't experience it. That then justifies the grievance. So it was a very wise insight of the Buddha to note that actually desire is the source of all suffering, and so the way out of suffering is let go of the desire, drop it, and you don't suffer anymore. Exactly what Yesh was telling us here. Okay, so any other thoughts on that one, John?
No, that's
Question?
clear.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay. So on to number 3 then, if you can read that. In the original and the alternative, kindly.
Where do all these differences come from? Where do all these differences come from? Certainly, they seem to be in the world outside. Certainly, they seem to be in the world outside. Yet it is surely the mind that judges what the eyes behold. Yet it is surely my mind that judges what my eyes behold.
Yeah. Thanks, my eyes.
It is the mind that interprets the eye's messages and gives them meaning. It is my mind that interprets the eye's messages and gives them meaning. And this meaning does not exist in the world outside at all. And this meaning does not exist in the world outside myself at all. What is seen as reality is simply what the mind prefers. What is seen as reality is simply what my mind prefers. Its hierarchy of values is projected outward, and it sends the body's eyes to find it. Its hierarchy of values is projected outward, and it sends the body its hierarchy of values is projected outward, and it sends my body's eyes to find it. The body's eyes will never see except through differences. The body's eyes will never see except through differences. Yet it is not the messages they bring on which perception rests. Yet it is not the messages they bring on which perception rests. Only the mind evaluates their messages. And so only the mind is responsible for seeing. Only my mind evaluates their messages. And so only my mind is responsible for seeing. It alone decides whether what is seen is real or illusory, desirable or undesirable, pleasurable or painful. It alone decides whether what is seen is real or illusory, desirable or undesirable, pleasurable or painful.
Okay, so read that from the top in the alternative.
Where do all these differences come from? Certainly they seem to be in the world outside. Yet it is surely my mind that judges what my eyes see. It is my mind that interprets my eyes' messages and gives them meaning. And this meaning does not exist in the world outside myself at all. What I see as reality is simply what my mind prefers. Its hierarchy of values is projected outward, and it sends my body's eyes to find it. The body's eyes will never see except through differences. Yet it is not the messages they bring on which perception rests. Only my mind evaluates their messages, and so only my mind is responsible for seeing. It alone decides whether what I see is real or illusory, desirable or undesirable, pleasurable or painful.
Okay, so what's he saying here? In summary?
is asking the question as to how our different views of what we want come about, and is pointing out to the fact that it's ourselves that give everything and its meaning, because otherwise there's no otherwise no reality does not exist in what is out there. It's in how we interpret it.
Think of it this way: it's like the raw material. We're getting the kind of raw data feed from the illusion, and then how we interpret it creates our perception and creates a self-concept and a sense of who we are and what's important to us and our values, and all of that is how we interpret the world. And you can have very different interpretations of exactly the same scene. I remember very clearly once I watched a movie with a friend, and there was exactly the same scene in the movie. It was an old movie with Demi Moore, Robert Redford, and Woody Harrelson, called Indecent Proposal, I think, if I recall. I don't know if you ever saw it, but the scene was that, you know, the story was that Robert Redford had basically hired his wife, Woody Harrelson's wife, for a night, because they were a couple down on their luck. They were in Vegas trying to kind of get themselves out of the financial dwang, and they lost all their money. And he kind of fancied her, and he said, okay, well, you know, I'll give you $1 million for one night. And they decided to go for it. And then you know, Woody Harrelson changed his mind, but it was too late. She flew off in a helicopter, and of course it damaged their relationship. And so, you know, then there was a whole drama, and she ended up hanging out with the billionaire Robert Redford. And so the billionaire's 2IC goes into this guy's house, and he sees him passed out. He's been drinking too much, and he's got a photo of the two of them torn in half, and then it's taped back together. So he kind of looks at that and he gives a little kind of wry smile. So my friend says to me afterwards, "Oh, that guy was such a bastard." I said, "Why?" He said, "No, he was like, you know, laughing at him." I said, "No, I think he was just understanding. It was like a smile of understanding. Okay, I understand the torment this guy's gone through. You know, he's ripped it up because, you know, he can't deal with it. And then he's like, oh, okay, I need to paste it back together again." And it's a smile of kind of actually some understanding and some compassion, I think, you know, was in it. And yet we perceived it completely differently. The same, you know, what the body's eyes are seeing, exactly the same. We're sitting next to each other in the movie, same scene, and we interpret it completely differently. And you know, that sort of, it was before I got into A Course in Miracles, long before, but it sort of did strike me. It's like, well, isn't that interesting? You know, so what is reality then? I perceive it completely differently from him based on our different thought systems, belief systems, and, you know, actually fell out with him. When we went into digs together, we just could not kind of gel, because actually he thought very differently from me, and that was symptomatic of that. So that, you know, that's an example. But think in your own life of how many times you've perceived something. It's the same thing you're perceiving, and yet someone sees it differently, and you go, "Well, okay, I didn't see that. How did you see that?" Because they're not seeing with the body's eyes; they're seeing with their mind. Perception is a mental function primarily. And then he's saying, so sorry, John, carry on with your summary.
No, I'd finished really.
Had you? Okay. So we see what we want to see. You know, he's saying its hierarchy of values is projected outward. Sends my body's eyes to find it. So we see what we want to see, and that's based on our value system and our beliefs. So if we look at this, let's go back to this diagram. Our fundamental desire or prayer to be either a separate self or oneself, the true self or the Christ, then creates a belief system that overlays that, and various thoughts that overlay that, and various emotions, and all of that is what underpins our perceptions. So our perception, we're getting, raw data fed to us by the matrix, but how we perceive it is a function of our core belief, who we, our desire for who we want to be, our core belief, thoughts, emotions, and that all influences perception. We also have some power over the actual data that gets fed to us, because by the mechanism of projection, our minds influence that, but that's indirect. That's not under conscious control unless you attain a very high level of mastery. As some masters do, like the Sai Babas of the world, just manifesting stuff. So it is possible, but for most of us, it's a case of, let's start to master perception. Let's start to change our belief system, our fundamental desire, who we want to be. Do we want to be the Christ, or do we want to be a separate self? The belief system that sits on top of that. Do I believe I'm a victim and unworthy, or do I believe I'm enough just as I am? And then that creates a whole set of thoughts, depending on which thought system you believe in, and emotions, positive or negative, and that influences all of your perceptions. And so we can start changing that. It's just saying you've got control over this. You can change your desire, you can change your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions, and so your perceptions. And as you change your perceptions, that reflects down, goes all the way down into the level of core belief and your desire to be a separate self or the one self as you change perception. So this is why it's so effective to change your mind. To change your mind, you must change your perception, because that ripples all the way down to the very core of the mind, which is where the miracle happens. The change of mind happens at the fundamental level of, I'm choosing to be one self, or I'm choosing to be a separate self. And then that will ripple up into the domain of perception and your words and your actions and so on, whichever decision you've made. So this is quite a useful diagram for understanding those levels, the layers of mind, and how this mechanism, projection, and perception really works, which is what he's describing in this paragraph. Only my mind evaluates their messages. Only my mind is responsible for seeing. That's what he's saying. So my mind, with all of its preconceived notions, emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and its fundamental desire, that is what interprets the raw data that comes in and creates what we call a perception. It alone decides whether what I see is real or illusory, desirable, undesirable, pleasurable or painful. So, two people can see the same thing, and one can perceive it as painful, the other could see it as pleasurable. That's very possible. It happens all the time. One could see it as the worst thing in the world, the other could see it as an opportunity or challenge. And so it goes. All right, so that's quite a meaty paragraph talking about the very fundamental nature of perception. Happy to move on to number 4.
Yeah.
Okay, Elaine, if you can read that.
It is in the sorting out and categorizing activities of the mind that errors in perception enter. It is in the sorting out and categorizing activities of my mind that errors in my perception enter. And it is here correction must be made. And it is here that I must make correction. The mind classifies what the body's eyes bring to it accordingly to its preconceived values, judging where each sense datum fits best. My mind classifies what my body's eyes bring to it according to its preconceived values, judging where each sense datum fits best. What basis could be faultier than this? What basis could be faultier than this? Unrecognized by itself, it has itself asked to be given what will fit into these categories. Unrecognized by itself, it has been itself asked to be given what will fit into these categories. And having done so, it concludes that categories must be true. And having done so, it concludes that the categories must be true. On this judgment of all differences rests, because it is on this that the judgments of the world depend. The judgment of all differences rests on this, because it is on this that judgments of the world depend. Can this confuse?
Because the judgments of the world depend on this. Would be a simpler way of saying that.
Can this confused and senseless reasoning be depended on for anything? Can this confused and senseless reasoning be depended on for anything?
Can I, maybe personalize that, can I depend on this confused and senseless, quote, reasoning? Can I really depend on this confused and senseless reasoning for anything? Okay, read that in the alternative from the top.
It is in the sorting out and categorizing activities of my mind that errors in my perception enter, and it is here that I must correct them. My mind classifies what my body's eyes bring to it, according to its preconceived values, judging where each sense datum fits best. What basis could be faultier than this? Unrecognized by itself, it has itself asked to be given what will fit into these categories. And having done so, it concludes that the categories must be true. The judgment of all differences rests on this, because the judgments of the world depend on this. Can I really depend on this confused and senseless reasoning for anything?
So what's he saying in this one?
Well, our mind's just so mixed up with all these activities, categorizing activities. And this is where we need to correct. So when the mind classifies, the body's eyes bring it according to what it preconceived values. And for each datum, which fits best to its category of activities, and on this basis, how faulty and stupid it all is.
When you think of all the categorization of the world, the classifications, the categorizations, well, this is this, and this belongs to this. And, that's what the ego's done. Created a world where we've sliced and diced reality into all these little categories and boxes. And all that speaks to a separation. It says, well, this is separate from this because look, it's got its own criteria, and there's some common elements, so we'll group it into something. We'll call that a genus, or a species, or whatever the category is. And then this is different, and because it's got different, and this is how the world works. And he's saying, does this actually make any sense? It's all based on one's preconceived values, and you fit everything then in to this thought system, this structure of your self-concept. Everything then comes in and is fitted in according to that structure. And in order to awaken from this, you have to break down that structure. So, well, maybe it's all BS. Maybe all of these categories and this whole structure of myself and what I value and what I don't, and it's all BS. It's not true. Actually, there's only pure formless awareness of perfect love, and all these categories are really meaningless. Hence, it begins the workbook with lesson 1. Nothing I see means anything. And lesson 2, I've given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. This is exactly what he's saying here. I've made it all up. I give it all the meaning it has for me. It has no absolute meaning. It only has the relative meaning that I give it. Only God's meaning is absolute, and that is beyond this world. All other meaning is assigned to us by a mind that is deluded, that believes in its own reality and is trying to perpetuate that reality through these faulty perceptions. This is what he's saying. He's saying, but this is all just a setup. And can you really depend on this confused and senseless reasoning, right? So you project it out, you go and seek for what you want to find, you then find it, and you go, oh, well, there you go. That confirms that I'm right. He's saying, well, no, it's just confirmed that your mind can delude itself, that you can see what you want to see. So that's not reasoning at all. There's no absolute reasoning or truth there. And so you can see how, then how we get very, very confused in this perceptual world. We start losing touch with our true reality. We don't know anymore what's real and what's not, who we are, who's actually perceiving. It all becomes very, very confused and very questionable. And the purpose of this course is to sort that out, sort out the mess, and bring us back to sanity. Saying, but just start being aware of the nature of this insanity. And once you're aware of it, then you can't participate in it anymore. Awareness creates the detachment from it that allows you to transcend it. Okay, so any other comments, questions, or thoughts on that one? It's quite deep stuff. This is a deep paragraph because he's going to the very fundamental nature of the illusion, projection, and perception, and how that all works to bind our mind into this dream world. So
very good.
Yeah. A recap. We've been through all this before. He deals with it in other sections of the course, in the workbook, in the text, but it's a recap of all of that stated, in another way. All right. So happy to move to number 5 then. John, if you can read that in the original and the alternative, please.
There can be no order of difficulty in healing merely because all sickness is illusion. There can be no order of difficulty in healing merely because all sickness is illusion. It is harder to dispel the belief of the insane in a larger hallucination as opposed to a smaller one. It is harder to dispel.
It's a question, John. Is it harder?
Oh, yeah. Is it harder to dispel the belief of the insane in a larger hallucination as opposed to a smaller one? Will he agree more quickly to the unreality of a louder voice he hears than to that of a softer one? Will I agree more quickly to the unreality of a louder voice I hear than to that of a softer one? Will he dismiss more easily a whispered demand to kill than a shout? Will I dismiss more easily a whispered demand to kill than a shout? And do the number of pitchforks the devils he sees carrying affect their credibility in his perception? And do the number of pitchforks the devil's eyes see carrying affect their credibility in my perception?
Quite
Yeah.
quite well said. So you've got a devil with lots of pitchforks, so it might be, you misperceiving some person in the illusion and going, oh, well, this person is this and that this is this, but he's saying, okay, you might see multiple pitchforks. These pitchfork is a weapon of the devil, but it doesn't really matter. There can be one or there can be many. It's actually all the same because none of them are real. So with these questions, he's asking us to, consider whether, all of these perceptions are just false. Okay, and carry on. His mind is categorized them all as real.
His mind has categorized them all as real, and so they are all real to him. My mind has categorized them all as real, and so they are all real to me. When he realizes they are all illusions, they will disappear. When I realize they are all illusions, they will disappear. And so it is worth healing. And so it is with healing. And so it is with healing. The properties of illusions which seem to make them different are really irrelevant, but their properties are as illusory as they are. The properties of illusions which seem to make them different are very irrelevant, but their properties are as illusory as they are.
Okay, so I read that in the alternative from the top.
There can be no order of difficulty in healing merely because all sickness is illusion. Is it harder to dispel the belief of the insane in a larger hallucination as opposed to a smaller one? Will I agree more quickly to the unreality of a louder voice I hear than to that of a softer one? Will I dismiss more easily a whispered demand to kill than a shout? And do the number of pitchforks the devils I see carrying affect their credibility in my perception? My mind has categorized them all as real, and so they are all real to me. When I realize they are illusions, they will disappear. And so it is with healing. The properties of illusions which seem to make them different are really irrelevant, but their properties are as illusory as they are.
Okay, so summary of that. What's he saying in summary?
Is asking us to understand that no matter how serious a problem may seem to be, how huge it might be, it isn't really, because it's all a misperception. So whether it seems huge or small is irrelevant because it's just perception.
Yeah, so we don't make distinctions among illusions. Illusion is an illusion is an illusion. Doesn't matter how many pitchforks the devil seem to carry. Doesn't matter how loud the voice seems to be. We have to perceive it correctly. That all of it is in the same order of reality. It's all illusion. So why are you believing in any of it? Seemingly, bigger illusion or louder illusion or brighter illusion or more attractive illusion is really it's all the same. And that is, really one of the key things of this whole thought system he's teaching us with the Holy Spirit. It's like, just, don't make these kinds of arbitrary distinctions that the ego likes to make anymore. Just see it all in one category. Well, there's two categories: truth and illusion. Anything in form that's changeable is illusion, and anything else is truth. And what remains when you let go of all form is formless awareness, pure formless awareness. So that is the truth, which has no form, but it can be experienced. Properties, the illusions seem to make them different or really irrelevant, for their properties are as illusory as they are. All the differences we perceive in the world are not there. All part of the illusion. But look at how deeply we are in it. Because we live in this world where these things seem to happen. They seem to be real. But we do have a choice as to whether we believe them or not. Okay, so happy with number 5?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so number 6.
My body's eyes will continue to see differences. My body's eyes will continue to see differences. But the mind that has let itself be healed will no longer acknowledge them. But my mind that has let itself be healed will no longer acknowledge them. There will be those who seem to be sicker than others, and the body's eyes will report their changed appearance as before. There will be those who seem to be sicker than others, and the body's eyes will report their changed appearances as before. But the healed mind will put them all in one category. They are unreal. But my healed mind will put them all in one category. They are unreal. This is the gift of its teacher, the understanding that only two categories are meaningful in sorting out the messages the mind receives from what appears to be the outside world. But my healed mind will put them all in one category. Oh, where am I? Just read that, haven't I? This is the gift of its teacher, the understanding that only two categories are meaningful in sorting out the messages the mind receives from what appears to be the outside world.
Yeah, carry on, number 6.
Yeah, and of these two, but one is real. And of these two, but one is real.
Yeah, only one is real.
Only one is real.
And we should say only one. And only one of these two is real. Okay, number 7.
Just as reality is wholly real, apart from size and shape and time and place, for differences cannot exist within it, so too are illusions without distinctions. Just as reality is wholly real, apart from the size and shape and time and place, for differences cannot exist within it, so too are illusions without distinctions. The one answer to sickness of any kind is healing. The one answer to sickness of any kind is healing. The one answer is to all illusions is truth. The one answer to all illusions is truth.
Okay, and then read that from the top in the alternative.
My body's eyes will continue to see differences, but my mind that has let itself be healed will no longer acknowledge them. There will be those who seem to be sicker than others, and my body's eyes will report their changed appearances as before. But my healed mind will put them all in one category. They are unreal. This is the gift of its teacher. Understanding that only two categories are meaningful in sorting out the message my mind receives from what appears to be the outside world, and only one of them, two, is real. Just as reality is wholly real, apart from size, shape, time, place, for differences cannot exist within it, so too are illusions without distinctions. The one answer to sickness of any kind is healing. The one answer to all illusions is truth.
Okay, so what's he saying in this one?
So once we've let our mind be healed, it can no longer acknowledge the differences from the body's eyes. They'll see sicker in others and report changed appearances as before, but the healed mind will put them all in one category. They aren't real. So this is the teacher, the understanding of the two categories. That one is not real.
And it makes it very simple, doesn't it? It's like, okay, well, there's no fudging it. There's no equivocation. It's not multiple categories. There's two: truth and illusion, reality and unreality. And I perceive accordingly. I've got one rule for the one, another for the other. It's very simple, binary. It's not the multiplicity. I think of the complexity of the ego's thought system. It's like, oh, well, there's this category, and then there's a subcategory and a subcategory, and now there's different rules for each one. It's very hugely confusing. And what works in one instance supposedly doesn't necessarily work in another, and that changes also according to the different cultures you happen to be in, and so on. And it's like, wow, very, very confusing. So this just cuts through all of it and says, look, there's only two. And it's actually very simple. Thought it would be interesting you read this one, because there will be those who seem to be sicker than others. My body's eyes will report their changed appearances. So, you have a friend who's got sick and is still sick. But, this is a message for you as well. It's still an illusion. These are the appearance of her sickness and depression and whatever else is an illusion. So don't be sucked in by it. And then, with that understanding, you can actually act in an unconditionally loving way towards her, because you don't believe in her illusions. You don't believe in the dream she's constructed for herself, which you sound like you did today. It helped her to see that there's something, beyond it.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, you can only point her in the right direction. Something on some level, there's something goes in. So, even if she doesn't accept it, it doesn't appear to have made a difference. It's gone in. She's heard it. She can't unhear that. It's gone in, and on some level, it's in her mind. And so, at some point, maybe she's ready to explore that and listen to that. When she suffered enough, really often that's the case. People have to
She
really go
certainly
through
has.
into the depths and then say, okay, enough's enough now, Okay, Elaine, what was that you were saying? Now I'm ready to, when she's willing to be helped, then you can really help her. Until that time, you can just, be there.
Support.
Support, waiting, as Yeshua does with all of us. It's like, well, I mean, it's a beautiful line from the Course. He says, if you want to be different from me, I'll just wait until you change your mind. If you want to be like me, I will help you, knowing that we are alike. If you want to be different from me, I'll wait until you change your mind. A great line. So you're just waiting. Okay, well, off you go then. Prodigal son, do your thing, but you will come back at some point. The pain and the disillusionment of this world will get too much, and you will return. And whether that's to A Course in Miracles and Yeshua, or it's another spiritual path, doesn't really matter, because all paths lead to God. So, but you will eventually find your way back to truth, because the illusion will just get too painful. So you just have to wait. So well, just wait. Everyone will find their way back when you've suffered enough. And so I think that's your attitude. So it's like, well, it's an illusion. I'm here, as a compassionate, loving presence. And when you've suffered enough, then I'll help you. Until then, I can't really very much, because she's not open to it.
No.
And one answer to all illusions is truth. It's a lovely way to finish that. Okay, so there's just a summary and key message. So let's read the summary. John, if you can read the first paragraph, just pause after the paragraph, give a little reflection on that, and then we'll carry on. Okay, John, are you still there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. In my understanding, the belief in the order of difficulties stems from perceiving the world through differences, leading to a mindset where everything is seen in conflict and competition. This perception is based on the false premise that physical differences determine reality, which my mind then categorizes and judges.
Yeah,
These,
pause it there. What's he saying?
so I'm saying here that we have invented this world of differences ourselves. Attached different
And then
orders.
categorize and judge it as real, even though we've invented it. So, and then apparently the categorization, the judgment makes it real, you see. So then, that just reinforces the reality of it, which is what it's all designed to do. Okay, and the next one, Elaine, if you can read that.
These judgments are inherently flawed, as they stem from preconceived values and a desire to make certain illusions seem real. My mind, in its attempt to find meaning, assigns values based on these illusions, causing confusion and conflict.
Okay, what's he saying there?
Judgments are inherently flawed because they come from preconceived values. So making certain illusions seem real, and the mind attempts to find meaning in them, which just leads to confusion and conflict.
So the meaning, this is why he targets meaning, in the beginning of the workbook, because the meaning is so critical to the illusions, to maintain the ego's construct, thought system. The meaning that it assigns to things is fundamental. So that's why he goes after the meaning straight away. Nothing I see means anything. If you really understood that, lesson one, that's it. You could close the book. I get it. Okay, nothing else. You know, if you really understand that, then that's it. Game over for the ego. But of course, it's going to take us a lot of work and mind training to really understand that and apply it. Okay, so next one, John. I recognize all sickness and the differences I perceive are illusions.
I recognize that all sickness and the differences I perceive are illusions. Whether an illusion appears large or small, loud or quiet, it is still unreal. My belief in its reality gives it power over me. Once I understand that these are all constructs of my mind, they lose their hold over me. This realization is crucial for healing, as it allows me to see beyond the physical appearances and understand that all forms of sickness are fundamentally the same and equally unreal.
Okay, so what's he saying in that one?
It's saying that once we recognize that the fact, once we acknowledge the fact that we are creating these differences, and once we acknowledge the fact that we are creating these differences and therefore creating the illusion, then we reach a point where we can start to let go of what we have believed. We can see that it's our beliefs that have done it. And then the healing starts when we let go of these beliefs.
Yeah, so it's a construct. I didn't write that. That was actually the AI. A construct of my mind. It's quite a good term. It's this mental construct. So it's a mental prison we keep ourselves in. And as soon as I understand that it's a construct, that I've given it all the meaning it has for me, and I don't have to continue believing in it, then it starts losing its power. And then I perceive a meaning beyond the physical appearances. And I understand that all forms of sickness are fundamentally the same and equally unreal. So whether that's, a minor cut, injury, or, major illness like cancer, or heart disease, or mental illness, it's really all the same, because it's all part of this illusory construct of the mind, which the mind's got itself caught up in. Okay, so my journey towards healing.
My journey towards healing involves training my mind to no longer acknowledge the differences that my body's eyes see, even when I perceive others as being sicker or different. I understand that these are just appearances. My healed mind categorizes all these perceptions as unreal, focusing only on what is truly real.
Okay, what's he saying in that one?
With the mind training, healing it will no longer acknowledge the differences of the body's eyes. Even though we see people as sicker than us, we understand that these are just appearances. So the healed mind categorizes all of it as unreal, focusing only on what is truly real.
Yeah, so we're able to make this clear distinction, and that brings us a lot of peace of mind. Okay, well, that's unreal. I don't have to really bother about that because it's not true. Neither is that. Oh, that's also untrue. It makes it so simple. Without this ability to categorize into just the two categories, you end up being caught up in the ego's world of trying to categorize and sort things out into multiple different categories, all of which seem to be different, and it's very confusing because none of that's true. None of it's real. And your categorization doesn't necessarily reconcile with someone else's. And it changes over time as well. It's even more confusing. What you once believed categorized as good might change in time, and then it's not so good. So, all of that's revealed to be unreal. Why? Because it changes. If things can change, they cannot be real. Only what is permanent is real. That's the definition of reality. It's permanent and unchanging. It's real. Everything else is impermanent, therefore unreal. Okay, and next one, this perspective is a gift.
This perspective is a gift from my teacher, helping me to understand that there are only two meaningful categories: what is real and what is illusion. The answer to any form of sickness and to all illusions is the same: healing and truth. This approach simplifies my perception and aligns it with pure formless awareness of perfect love, guiding me towards a reality where only truth exists, free from the distortions of physical differences and judgments.
I think let's finish it with the. This is a nice summary. The one answer to sickness of any kind is healing.
Mm.
The one answer to all illusions is truth. And I think that kind of sums up the whole thing, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so any other thoughts on that paragraph?
No, I mean, what he's saying here is that the gift from our teacher is the realization of the difference between illusion and truth, and that we have the ability to see beyond the illusion to truth in all situations.
Yeah. Okay, and then if you read the key message.
I understand that my perception of the world's difficulties is rooted in illusion. By recognizing the differences are unreal, I understand that all forms of sickness are essentially the same illusion. The one answer to sickness of any kind is healing. The one answer to all illusions is truth.
Okay, so what's he saying in that one?
Well, the problems of the world is rooted in illusions. So once we start recognizing these differences are unreal, and all forms of sickness are also the same in an illusion. So the answer to it all is healing. And then the answer will be to be in the truth rather than the illusion.
Very simple truth that none of it's true, none of it's real. So on that basis, you can let it all go. And the sickness, if you truly let go of sickness, then it's no longer. And this is how miraculous healings do happen. So instantly, people can be healed because they just dropped the idea of sickness. They let it go. And one answer to all illusions is truth. So this is how Yeshua did his healing. He was such a powerful healer because he just answered all illusions with the truth. And he was so rooted in that he brought other people into that, where they finally maybe saw that their sickness was unreal. It was a product of their mind, and they were willing to let that go and be healed. That's why I say to them, are you willing to be healed? And he also always focused on the letting go of guilt. He would always say, your sins are forgiven, because he understood that illusion of guilt was the cause of the sickness. So he went to the root cause, which is guilt, released that, and then voila, the mind's released, the body heals, quite dramatically, instantly, in his case, because it's such a big shift. There was so much belief invested in him, because he was supposedly the Messiah, that it led to these extraordinary healings. But the principles are always the same: truth. Alter the truth above the illusion, no matter what. One answer to sickness of any kind is healing. The one answer to all illusions is truth. That's a lovely summary of the whole session, the whole section. And an answer to the question, and you answer it directly. Said, how can the perception of order of difficulties be avoided? Well, that answers it. One answer to sickness is healing, and the one answer to all illusions is the truth. That's how you avoid it. So you have to be very clear cut, and not fudge it. I think that's a key thing with this teaching. If you start fudging it and compromising, then you lose the clarity, and then the ego is very much back in business, because you're just compromising, and there can be no compromise between illusion and truth. That's the whole message of this teaching. You must stick to one or the other. And if you think that it's sort of partly truth, then it's illusion. You're just fudging it, trying to bring the truth into the illusion, rather than illusions to the truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why he's over and over, he just keeps telling us there's two thought systems, there's two different ways of thinking and perceiving, and you must choose. So that's really the key message of the whole course. You must choose correctly, and you'll be happy and peaceful and ultimately transcend the whole illusion. Choose incorrectly, and you're going to be miserable, unhappy, and believe in the illusions of sickness and suffering and death until you eventually do die. And then the suffering's not over, because the ego will bring you back, and you have another round in another lifetime, and it will carry on until you're willing to make this clear choice that he's asking us to make throughout this course, between truth and illusion. Okay. So any other thoughts or comments, questions on that section? A nice one, quite profound, actually. I think there's a lot of
it's a good session.
Deep wisdom in that, about the nature of the dream and projection and perception, and then how do you get out of it? Well, you just stick to the truth, hold to the truth, and recognize that all illusions are just that, equally unreal. It's not that hard, is it? And conceptually, you go, well, okay, so that sounds quite simple. But to do it in practice, when your mind is so tempted to make these distinctions, which it's been trained to do, you're conditioned to do that. That's where the mind training, the discipline comes in. To go, no, I'm not even going there. I'm not making distinctions among illusions. I'm just seeing that all the illusions are the same. And you consciously do that. That's the correction or the miracle that you're being asked to do continuously, all the time, whenever you tempt to start making distinctions based on illusions. So yeah, a very good section, a good thing to remember. It's reinforcing the, the course's key message of, well, there's only two thought systems you must choose between them. You can't have both. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of the session. Unless there's anything else, John, you want to add? Comments, questions, thoughts? Do you have any questions about the text? Actually,
the whole session tonight reminds me of what happened last night. Actually, we went to see Napoleon, the new film Napoleon, the Ridley Scott movie.
Okay.
And I've been looking forward to seeing it for days, and and we got in there, and the projection, the actual film failed a couple of times.
Right.
And then the film was I didn't actually enjoy the film that much, and I got to the end of and halfway through the performance I realized that I've actually been sitting on a wet seat. Somebody's spilled a glass of wine or something on this seat, and I've been sitting on it for the last hour, and it's and just kind of the me pressing down on the cushion somehow made the and it was such a disappointing evening.
It's such a disappointing experience. Yeah, but it was look at the expectation.
Yeah,
that was
so
it's only disappointing if you have expectation.
Yeah,
that's how the mind works. These expectations, and then good lesson, because like obviously that happened. To go, well, don't create those expectations.
Yeah,
let go. So we have to be vigilant. I think that the desires, what we think of as normal, most people are like, well, yeah, it's normal. You're looking forward to going to a movie. What's wrong with that? But looking forward, expectation, desire, it all creates suffering. So, well, do you want to suffer, or do you want to be free and at peace and stay that way? That's the choice. That doesn't mean you don't go and see a movie, but if there's no desire, why would you bother? That's the question. It's like, well, why am I going, to watch more illusions?
Yeah.
It's an illusion. What you're seeing, think about what you see on a movie screen. I mean, it's just images projected onto the screen, and we sit there watching these moving images for 2 hours, and that's entertaining. But again, it's a little microcosm of this lesson, because in that you have created all the meaning that those images have for you, haven't you? It's your interpretation of the images that are projected onto the screen that give it the meaning. Exactly what I said with my friend. He interpreted that in a certain way based on his thought system. And so that's entertaining for us, because the mind creates a meaning. And if you just sat there and you didn't give it any meaning, then the movie would have no meaning for you. Just, well, why am I, watching all these meaningless images being projected onto a screen? And everyone's really into the images, and it sort of brings to mind the cave analogy of Plato, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're all sitting there, in these seats. Okay, we're not chained, but now in luxurious seats. Okay, in your case it was wet as well, and looking at these images, fixated, and thinking that that's reality. And then the master says, "Hang on, look behind," and you go, "No, these are just images being projected from a projector, which are not reality at all. They're just projected onto the wall, the screen, and you perceive it as reality, but they're not really reality at all." So, the cave analogy was long before this kind of technology was invented. Today's equivalent would be, well, you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching all these images projected, and you got so entrapped in it that you believe the images are true. And the awakened one starts turning around and looking away from the screen and sees, hang on, but there's this, beam of light, and I'm seeing the projector. And then, goes into the projector room and goes, okay, well, hang on, this is just an illusion maker. So it's got everyone transfixed, and it's just a machine that creates these illusions. none of which are real, and then walks out of the theater, says, well, hang on, what's actually reality? The difference in our dream world is it seems to be so real because it's not in 2D, it's 3-dimensional, and then you've also got time, so 4 dimensions. It's a 4D illusion playing itself out, and we are one of the characters in the dream. So we get identified with that, and we just forget who we are. It's just, I'm just a projection in a dream. This image is just, a character wandering around in a dream, and none of it's true. And that's the awareness we have to cultivate to awaken from it. So, hopefully tonight's session is another step in the right direction. Elaine, any comments or thoughts you want to share?
No, very interesting. I'm happy listening.
Yeah, quite a deep section. I enjoyed that. It touches on all of these projection, perception, nature of the illusion, and then the one key message of this course is choose the truth over the illusion. You can't have both. So make that clear distinction. Make the choice consistently, clearly, and that's your way out of the dream. That's how you collapse the construct of the matrix. You don't get confused anymore by all of the rules of the matrix. You just see beyond it. If you recall that movie, The Matrix, it demonstrates it quite well. Once he sees the code, he's like, but it's all the same. It's just code. I understand what it is. I don't get confused by the differences on the level of form. It's all just code. So it's all matrix. It's all part of the illusion. And, that's when he comes into his awakening. He sees the code and goes, it's all the same. So I'm not fooled by it. So that's what Yeshua is trying to train us to do with all this mind training. It's just see it, all the illusion for what it is, and the truth beyond it. Okay, so yeah, I think let's call it tonight then. Just in terms of tomorrow, could we do an afternoon session? I think probably want to go and spend the evening with Deborah and Gabriel. So does that work? 12:30?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that'll work for me. Yeah.
All right, great. So 12:30, we'll try and wrap it up by 3 o'clock tomorrow. So I'll see you then. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jono.
Thank you both.
Namaste.
Namaste. Night night, Elaine.
Good night, John.
All right. Bye, Elaine. All right. So that's a wrap for tonight. Thank you to Elaine and John for joining, making the session possible. If you watched the video on the live stream or the recording, and you'd like to join us for these sessions, join us for our next masterclass. There's a link below. The next one is happening next year. So we're starting this program again in February next year. So join us for the Art of Letting Go Masterclass, where you'll find out more about this program and how you can use it to completely transform your thought system in your life by really taking a deep dive into A Course in Miracles. You can also sign up and get the material I shared up front in the email sent to you on Telegram. So it's a link going below in the comments box for the YouTube video. Sign up to that. And finally, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, you'd like to be notified whenever I go live, which is 6 times a week, and any other videos I upload, of which there will be more next year, then hit the subscribe button and subscribe. So I hope to see you on the inside soon. Thank you for watching and listening, and stay in the truth. Remember, the answer to all illusions is the truth. Answer to all sickness is healing. The answer to all illusions is the truth. That's really the key takeaway, my key takeaway anyway, from today's session. So thanks for listening, and namaste, which means the truth in me acknowledges and honors that same truth in you. Peace.